It's David Wowee here. Is Cerius any good? Introduced in the Cliffs of Wyrmrest Rise Saga, Cerius is the first gacha character in the game to have a stellar board and reach level 100. Here's what I think are his best skills, team and equipment setup, as well as a damage test for you to see what he can do at level 100. Spoiler alert, I break the damage cap and he deals more than 10 billion damage over turn 2 and 3. But the biggest question is he actually worth your time? He's strong, but I'll tell you why he kind of annoys me. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help spread awareness of this great game. And for better or worse, Another Eden's characters and gameplay are getting really complicated now, so these videos are taking crazy amounts of time to make. So if this helps you in any way, donate a thanks, or just tell the devs to make everything simple again. Do you have Cerius 4.5 star version and not his 5-star version? Or if you're watching this in the future, did you pull him from a banner that's not specific to him? I'm working on a guide on how to upgrade him to 5-star and unlock his stellar board. I'll link it in this video description when done. Make sure to subscribe to know when it's available. Anyway, what are Cerius's best skills? Here are a few popular ones, but I'll tell you why I only ever use one skill to deal the most amount of damage. First, we get Siege Mode, which is not really a skill, but something that happens in the background once you have enough stacks. It gives Cerius plus 100 power, barrier piece, and knockback immunity, which is great. The challenge is to get to Siege Mode, you need 3 stacked blast bolts, and keeping 3 of them is much harder than it sounds. I'm going to list a bunch of complicated stuff that explains why it's hard at first, but keep watching because I've discovered a simple solution to this problem that makes keeping 3 stacks so much easier. But first, here's the hard stuff. Here's how you can get more blast bolt stacks. When you start the battle, you automatically get 1 stack. You can get up to 2 more stacks only at battle start when you've unlocked specific Stellar Awakening skills. So if you've unlocked these skills, which I'll talk about soon, you will now automatically have a total of 3 stacks, but only on turn 1. The annoying thing is, at the end of every turn, all your stacks reset to 0. So for the whole match, you need to find ways to keep that stack at 3 or more to make Cerius as strong as possible with Siege Mode. Here's how. You get more stacks the more piercing moves are done during the turn, with a max stack of 5. So Cerius works best if he is constantly attacking and or other piercing units are constantly attacking. But remember, you ideally need 3 stacks to be in Siege Mode, so you need to squeeze at least 3 piercing attacks from whoever is in your team in every turn. Or you can use Cerius's reload skill, which replenishes 3 stacks, but you may not want to use up 1 skill slot for this skill depending on your strategy. Does any of this make sense to you? No? Good, because you don't really need to know it. Just follow the steps I'll show you soon on how to deal that sweet damage. So let's get back to the skills. If you have a 5-star Cerius with a stellar board unlocked, there's only 1 skill I needed to use to reach that multi-billion damage mark. But if you don't have stellar board unlocked, I have some bad news. Cerius won't be as easily impressive as other level 80 attack units such as Minalka, Yakumo and Cesta, and if you really like Cerius, I would work towards unlocking his stellar board and getting him to level 100 as quickly as possible if you really want to make him impressive. If you don't have Cerius's stellar board yet, one popular skill would be Scout Field. Scout Field may be an obviously good skill for some, but here's why I don't use it. Scout Field deploys piercing flash dance, awakens another zone for 2 turns, reduces your enemy's intelligence and pierce resistance. Sounds good, right? But the annoying thing about this is that you need to activate the stance on 1 turn and then use the skill again to awaken the stance on the 2nd turn, which is wasteful because if you use my strategy, you should already be dealing billions of damage by turn 2 and even end of turn 1 depending on your setup. So instead of using Scout Field, what I do is I get another team member to activate Torn Earth Stance instead of piercing Flash Stance. Mune for Alter can activate Torn Earth Stance, for example, which might even be better for Cerius as Torn Earth Stance increases Earth attack by 100% in Awakened Zone compared to 60% in an Awakened Piercing Flash Stance. Confused? Good! This technical stuff is just background knowledge for those who want to understand Cerius more thoroughly. The juicy steps are coming soon, baby. The other 3 skills worth looking at are Boring Shot, which could be good for bosses because it inflicts an XL Earth type piercing attack on a single enemy and increases critical damage by 50% for 3 turns. And if you're in siege mode, you get Singular Focus, which increases your damage based on your max MP, and then your critical damage doubles for 6 turns. And then there's Terra FIFA, which is great for attacking both mobs and single bosses. It's an XL Earth type piercing attack on all enemies and gives 3 stacks of weapon break, and it can consume 1 blast bolt to increase damage by 8. The third skill is the most important one because it is the only skill I use of Cerius's, but you need to have his stellar board to unlock it. More on that soon, but this skill is called Volley Fire. Volley Fire performs Cerius's strongest unique skill 3 times in a row. If you've unlocked all his base skills, the strongest skill is Terra FIFA, which we just talked about, and when in Stellar Burst he performs this skill 5 times in a row, which does insane damage. The perfect part about this skill is that if upgraded, it stacks at least 3 blast bolts each time it's used, which constantly puts you in siege mode, which in turn gives Cerius a whopping plus 100 power each turn. Do you want to see Cerius in action yet? First, let's look at Cerius's passive skills, which you may want to know. So for passive skills, Cerius has this thing called bolt stacking, which we already discussed. And like a number of new characters, Cerius also has the linking ability, but in his case, it only works if the team is in Piercing Flash Dance. So if 2 Arcadia members are on the front line, after you have Piercing Flash Dance activated, if you have 2 Arcadia members on the front line, you get plus 100% critical rate. And if there are 4 Arcadia members on the front line, it grants flexible, meaning that all their attack types become piercing. This is really great, but also really pointless if you want Cerius to do well with a non-Arcadia team or have teammates who won't benefit from Piercing Flash Dance, because it requires you to have Piercing Flash Dance to work. Just in case you don't know, what are Arcadia members? They're basically the playable characters you get from the Cliffs of Wyrmrest Rise saga. Blah blah bloody blah. I personally haven't needed any of these passive skills to deal significant damage except for bolt stacking. Before we get into the damage test, we first need to look at the stellar board to understand how it works. So how should you approach Cerius's stellar board? If you're like most people with this 5-star Cerius, you probably don't have 80 light points for him. The good news is you don't need 80 light points to get his best abilities, but you do need to wisely decide which parts of his stellar board to unlock with your limited amount of points. I recommend you do your own research first to see which skills suit your style of gameplay, but I personally prioritized in the following order: his 2 blast bolt ability so you can get siege mode at the start of battles, his max level plus 5 slot so you can get him to level 100, then I chose my favorite skill, Volley Fire, then I chose his stellar skills, then I increased his core stats. What is the ideal team setup for Cerius? Cerius is an attack character, so your team should generally be built around making him stronger and the enemy weaker. What's your team setup? I'd love to know it. Feel free to share it below, but here is my setup. I have a Pain and Poison setup. For Cerius, I rotate between Armpit Sniffer Tuva Alter and Iffy. In this example, I'll use Armpit Sniffer. As a support unit, to make Cerius stronger, I use Yifa Another Style, who I've made a guide for by the way, check it out after this video. As a tank unit, to improve Cerius's defense while also making him stronger, I use Miyunfa Alter. I've also interchanged her with Radius Another Style. Cerius is much stronger with Miyunfa Alter by his side as my support, but Radius AS is great for enemies who have one-hit kills because she can use Chivalry to prevent the team from getting hurt. In the sidelines, I also have an Earth Bow character. In this case, we have my boy Ciel, who can store shared Grasta that Cerius can benefit from. Here I have her with Enhance If Max HP Bow that when upgraded gives every bow user in the team plus 30% damage, and also Power of Quake. When upgraded, it gives every Earth user in the team plus 30% Earth damage, and obviously that includes Cerius. As a sidekick, did I just say sidekick? As a sidekick, you can consider Ukulele, who reduces your enemy's weakness against Earth attacks. But in my playthroughs, I haven't noticed much difference between him and any other sidekick, so choose who you wish. How about equipment? You can screenshot this to see the equipment I gave each character in this damage test, but as a general rule, I focused on giving Cerius a badge that increases his power to improve his attack and speed to increase his attacks during another force. If for some reason you like Cerius's boring shot, which gets stronger the more MP you have, you may want to give Cerius an MP badge. What's probably more impactful is the Pain, Grasta and Ore upgrades I equipped Cerius with, which you can see here. Shout out to Best Boy for suggesting I use these Grasta upgrades, which are the standard go-to Bullseye Ore, Last Stand Ore and Roses with Thorns Ore. And the difference between a standard Pain Grasta and an upgraded Grasta with Bullseye Ore and the ores I just mentioned can be between hundreds of millions to billions of damage. And speaking of Best Boy, let's look at my Cerius damage test! At first I told Best Boy that my Cerius was impressive because I could get him to do 200 million damage each hit, but Best Boy wasn't impressed, he said. So I went and made Cerius deal 500 million damage each hit, but Best Boy still wasn't pleased. 1 billion damage, I asked, but Best Boy wouldn't have it. Thanks to his urging, I've tweaked my strategy in a way where Cerius can reach the damage cap and deal over 2 billion damage per hit by turn 2, which you can see here totals about 6.5 billion, then about another 7 billion on turn 3, and I'm sure with more tweaking, you can do even more damage than this. How did I do it? Turn 1, I had Mune for Alter set Torn Earth Stance with Charity Blend, then I had Armpit Sniffer Tuva Alter set Poison and Awaken Earth Stance with Demonic Thrust. Then I used Yifa Another Style's Faith to fully boost Cerius's stats, and I used Cerius's Volley Fire to attack. Turn 2, I used Mune for Alter's Promise, Armpit Sniffer's Dying Shade, and Yifa AS's Bienach Bua to boost everyone's stats. And guess what skill I used for Cerius? Volley Fire. That's right, Volley Fire is the only skill of Cerius's that I use again and again. Volley Fire. That's it, nothing else. And there. With this simple setup, you can deal a ridiculous amount of damage within minutes. If you're interested in seeing the damage tests completely, I've added 2 damage tests at the end of this video for your pleasure. Should you get Cerius? There's no doubt that when you've unlocked all of his skills, Cerius can be impressive. He can be a powerful earth piercer for anyone who needs a stronger earth or piercing unit in their team. He also has a fun backstory, and if you unlock him and play his side quests, not only do you get to understand a bit of his background, you also get to see him build a stronger friendship with another big character in the Cliffs of Wyrmrest, Rise Saga, Rise herself. Obviously, Cerius can also be totally worth it if you want to have all the playable characters from this Rise Saga. Cerius is the first gacha character in the game to get to level 100 and have a stellar board, and if he and Aldo, who can now also reach level 100, are in the front lines, you can actually hear them speak to each other.
We must hunt as one. We got this!
So you may want to get him for these sentimental reasons alone. As you can see from my damage test, there's no doubt that Cerius can be strong, but you have to do so much to unlock his stellar board and grind away to get him to level 100 just to get there. But then other characters such as Minalka and even someone like Dewey Another Style can deal similar damage with much less work required at level 80. Thanks Best Boy for sending me this video of him getting his Dewey Another Style to bloody do 2 billion damage. So if you're a busy person and your only goal is to get someone who is easy to understand and doesn't need much work, once again, just get Minalka, who I've done a guide for, or Yakumo, who's slightly more complicated than Minalka, or even Sesta, who's probably the most complicated of the lot, but she doesn't require as much work as Cerius. But one advantage Cerius has over Sesta though is that Sesta needs a win team to do her best, whereas Cerius doesn't necessarily need an earth-piercing team with him. I've also done a guide for Sesta, by the way. Also, Minalka and Yakumo come with free sidekicks who are awesome and super useful for your gameplay. But in saying that, if you enjoy the challenge of getting someone to level 100 and like spending hours building your characters up and crafting that perfect team for different scenarios, just look at my results. Cerius could be the right man for you. Let me know your thoughts, your strategies. Let me know everything about your life. Give me your details. Type in below. Anyway, here are my damage tests.